Two friends meet up to drink some beers and talk about past times. Not yesterday, but long ago, it's scandals, wars and crimes. From Stalin's reign to Prohibition, Tudors, Pompey, Bush and NASA's mission, Edison's bulk, Genghis Khan's rise to victory. Forget your old teacher, it's time for Pint-Sized History.
Here we go.
See you, mate.
Oh, it's me. Hi there, and welcome to the Pint-Sized History Podcast. I'm Joe.
And I'm Zack. You might be wondering why I'm laughing. Joe's completely messed up the introduction.
We'll keep it in. Yeah, no, I forgot it was me because I'm not the host this time. It's Zack that's doing all the hosting. So I forgot it's my role to introduce us. So hi and welcome back to the podcast. We're the podcast that talks about history, but in a more casual way, where we drink some pints of beer and talk about something really interesting. Fucking hell, have you almost finished yours already? What's going on there?
I just I opened it before we started recording about 5 minutes ago, and I seem to have already drunk half a pint. So here we go.
Well, I'm getting started now, and I must say, Zack, I'm excited for you to tell us what this podcast is all about.
Typically, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown about what we're talking about, but I think the best thing for me to do this episode is set the scene. So on 18th of February, 1945, in the middle of the northwestern Pacific Ocean, sits a small volcanic island, roughly 8 miles squared, an island about the size of Wrexham, which is a very small town in Wales. The island can be considered quite a natural beauty. It's got a huge 550-foot hill called Mount Suribachi, which literally translates to a mortar and pestle bowl, Suribachi, as it's called in Japanese. It's idyllic, around 750 miles south of Tokyo, with stunning terrain, but equally very difficult terrain that make it very hard for a person to freely move around on. So picture this huge expanse of ocean, and this little island sat there. And on the 16th February 1945, the US Navy's 5th Fleet show up to surround Iwo Jima, and a mass horde, enormous bulk of almost 500 ships, including battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and landing craft turn up. This 500-strong force of boats mercilessly bombard the island, hoping to dislodge and unsettle the 20,000-strong group of Imperial Japanese Army soldiers holding the island. And at 8:59 a.m. on the 19th of February, the first wave of Marines lands on the beaches of this tiny island called Iwo Jima. And what followed is the deadliest battle in Marine Corps history, and the first time during the Pacific War where Japanese casualties are lower than their American counterparts.
Really? You know what? Now you say that, I actually feel like I did know that, but that is a surprising stat. Up to this point in the Japanese war, it's just basically been the Japanese just throwing men at the Americans, and the Americans just annihilating legions. But instead, now it's like the closer they get to the homeland, the deadlier it gets for the Americans. Wow. Well, I tell you what, that scene is so set. I feel so set now.
I think I've set the scene. I actually just think it was way too serious for me. I don't think I've set the scene well at all. But regardless, let me get back to it. Look, I've got that alternative, and now I'll hit you with we're talking about the Battle of Iwo Jima. It's a battle on a tiny it's a battle on a tiny island in the Northwest Pacific, like I said before, and it is a horrendous, bloody, awful battle between the Japanese and the American armies. As always, thank you for listening to the Pint-Sized History podcast. If you could kindly like, review, follow, subscribe, comment, repost any of our posts or our podcasts, or leave reviews, 5-star preferably if you feel inclined to do so. We would love that very much. And it would do wonders for reaching out to more people who want to listen to two idiots talk about history.
Who's the second? You and who? It's not me.
Just me.
I was going to play the part of someone that might not know much about this time period, Zack, and ask, what war is this? What moment in history is this? And who's fighting in this battle?
Well, you'd be a simpleton, because I said it was 1994, which means it's World War II.
But maybe someone doesn't know that it's World War II.
Yeah, to be fair, we do appeal to the absolute imbeciles across the internet.
Whoa, don't insult our fucking base, dude. I was just pointing out that,
I don't know why they're watching us.
You know what? I'm just going to bloody say it. This is a World War II battle. Is it the deadliest battle of the Pacific front?
No, the deadliest battle is the Battle of Okinawa. Iwo Jima is the second deadliest. I think Iwo Jima is probably
the deadliest for the Americans.
Proportionately to the Japanese.
I thought Iwo Jima was the deadliest battle for the Americans in World War II.
No, Okinawa, they had far more losses, but Okinawa's a far bigger island. It's it's a lot more strategic. I hear you tippy tapping away, you googling it and checking.
No,
more American soldiers died in the Battle of Okinawa than did at Iwo Jima. I can tell you that right now.
Interesting. Very interesting.
What does the AI Google chatbot say, Joe?
Yeah. biggest losses for the Americans. No, I do believe you. Totally. So it is the Battle of Okinawa. Wait, what? Only that many? For some reason, I thought it was more.
Yeah. Only 28,000 casualties, whereas on the Japanese side, there is a strong garrison, and around 19,000 of them die. Because
So
when the Japanese go to war, it's not really, there's not really prisoners. Like, there's this sort of like Banzai samurai code where they don't get taken, they don't get captured, they fight to their death. Like, they're horrible, horrible soldiers to fight in the sense that they will not relinquish a bit of ground unless it has cost them their life, which makes the fighting and the horror like that much more, basically.
Yeah.
This is like to dislodge, they're not going to run. So to dislodge a strong point or an encampment or like a pillbox, something like that, you have to literally dismantle it. Like, you have to throw grenades in there, smoke out with flamethrowers, pour fucking lead into that concrete block where they're stationed there. They literally, I'm going ahead here again, but the Battle of Iwo Jima, the General Kuribayashi says to his people, "This is your gravesite. These positions you have, your battle stations are your graves." So that is just like a peek into the mentality of the Japanese. But this is like the first time they really do this in such like a stoic fashion, because typically what they would do in fighting in the Pacific War throughout the World War II is Japanese soldiers would hold their posts, and then when the Americans were winning or got close, they would do a Banzai charge, which is they would just flood it with numbers at the American lines and get kind of mowed down and torn apart by machine gun fire.
Banzai.
And that is not what happens here.
Oh, it's not what happens. Okay. Before we continue those, I have to ask something. So my first question is, what it really inspired you to choose this topic as your topic for this week?
It's like
why do you want to do it?
It's like I'm on Piers Morgan Uncovered. What inspired you?
Is that something you said?
What inspires you? The kids at home, Joe. The kids at home inspire me to talk about Iwo Jima. The kids that lack the knowledge.
Specifically, why
if you've been a fan of the podcast, you know that I've been talking about Iwo Jima for about 4 seasons now. It is probably my, it sounds bad saying favourite, but it is probably the one battle besides like Battle of Bulge and Stalingrad, which like truly gets my haunches up, because I think
it's probably the one battle, except for the other two before it. So, but that's a third. Yeah, but like, the one battle,
the scale of the other two, the horror, the scale of the other two is like so much more. Like it's millions and not tens of thousands. But this one is like, because I think the Pacific Theater is like way under discussed. Like, no one really talks about it that much unless you're American, because they think the entire World War II was the Pacific Theater. So yeah, I think it's important to shine a light on what happens there, because the fighting is probably, besides the Eastern Front, some of the most grueling that took place in the war. And I think it's just fascinating looking into like, the Japanese psyche and like the way they kind of act when they're under pressure, and how they defend and how they fight. And it's like something from like, I don't know, the 1700s, like their mentality of this like complete desire to not lose to their competitors, but all the time knowing they are going to lose. So yeah, it's fascinating.
It's also one of the things that makes World War II so interesting as a war anyway, is that like you have these like ways you think about, describe or think about the Eastern Front. You're probably going to think of either war happening in, say, a city like Stalingrad, but it's freezing cold and it's like, you're getting frostbite, you don't have the warm winter clothing for it. But then at the exact same time, or at least like during the exact same period of history, you've got on a complete other side of the world, as far as you can go away from it, in like the soaring tropical heat, the Pacific Front, where there's these battles for these like not rural, so we're not fighting in a city, but instead fighting on these like islands where there's like mosquitoes and stuff. It's like the contrast in all these different things that are technically happening at the same time is really, really interesting. My second question is that now that we got the first one out of the way, is last episode, you said that you were going to take it all the way back to the age of the classics, or at least the medieval period, because we've been doing too much modern history. So may I ask, why have you now decided instead to go to 1945?
I've got yawn, boring, oh god, classical times. Who wants to hear about that? I want to hear about bloodshed and guns and bombs and planes and boats. I want to hear about World War II, because World War II is just probably the most exciting history's ever been. Yawn, okay. Give me Rome another day. I say give me Iwo Jima every week.
Okay, fair enough. Excuse me for thinking we might be going back to something a bit different because we've been doing so many like more recent history podcasts. No. But let's jump right back in. So,
what's the point, Joe? What do you think the point was of the battle for Iwo Jima? Because you don't know really anything.
Well, I know
about
the point.
it.
I know the point of the Pacific Front, but I don't know the point of this specific battlefield. I know the point is that they have to go island by island, piece by piece, until eventually they reach the Japanese homeland. And Iwo Jima is the next of those islands. But I don't know if there's any other specific reason why you're prompting me.
Yeah, essentially right. This is because
Okay.
the whole point of the Battle of Iwo Jima is like really debated by historians.
Okay.
The whole objective of the Americans in this battle, the reason why they're having this battle in Iwo Jima is to secure 2 airfields, which the Japanese are launching fighters from. And this like early warning system, which they have part of at Iwo Jima. There's like a radar system there to alert the home islands about bombers that are coming from different islands in the Pacific. So that's the American justification for Iwo Jima. But like, in actual fact, it's a really insignificant piece of land that they could have probably just bypassed altogether without the immense bloodshed. And
But if they had done that, then wouldn't there have always been a base of operations in Iwo Jima for the Japanese to attack from behind?
We'll get onto this, but their infrastructure and their like equipment and their ability to use the island as a platform is like incredibly diminished. There is like no real chance for them to actually use Iwo Jima as a staging ground for attacks or like send fighters or kamikazes off to US boats, stuff like that. It is in between where the US are in like kind of the Marshall and Mariana Islands and where Japan is, but it's a very, very, in my opinion, and I'm not, we say we're amateur historians, we're historians as a hobby, we're not serious academics. I think this might be one of the most insignificant battles of World War II, specifically in the Pacific Theatre anyway.
Okay.
So let's dive in. Let's get into it. And it's a trademark Zack episode because what's coming up now, Joe?
Let's go back in time.
Let's go all the way back. Let's go all the way back.
All the way back. Yeah, is that it? All right.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, the viewers will be listening to their headphones and screaming into their phones, all the way back, because they know me so well now. It's a Zack episode. We're going back. So yes, humble viewers, we're going all the way back. We're going back, not that far. You can breathe a sigh of relief. We did Pearl Harbor and we talked about like the Japanese origins backgrounds. Like,
it all started when Franz Ferdinand got shot in Sarajevo.
Everything does start with Franz Ferdinand. Like all the calamities. Have you recently watched the Long Road to War? No, it's a World War I documentary which traces the origins of World War One, and it's like Franz Ferdinand is responsible for the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991. It's like it's literally getting at that. It's saying like the origins. Franz Ferdinand's the archer that got shot that sparked World War One, by the way, if that wasn't clear. And the argument is that World War One caused the rise of Nazi Germany, and
not really
the breakup
an
of Russia to the Soviet Union, which caused World War Two, and then like the Chinese Civil War and all that, and then leads to today where we've got the Afghanistan war on terror and stuff like that, which I guess to a certain extent you could say there is some credence to that for, but it is so loose. So on the 7th December 1941, there's Pearl Harbor, which I think everyone here knows what happens. If you're a fan of the podcast, we covered an episode in it. So when the Japanese launched this like attack on the American fleet in Hawaii, in Pearl Harbor, and they begin going on this thing called the Strike South Doctrine, also known as Nanshin Ron, which is like this Japanese military philosophy or like their territorial expansionism, where their main aim is to secure like resource-rich areas in Southeast Asia. So they begin invading places like the Philippines, British Malay, Thailand. They capture Singapore, the Dutch East Indies. They go as far as New Guinea, which
take the whole thing basically. Yeah,
puts them just within reach of Australia. They don't go as far as Australia.
They bombed Darwin. I know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But they're threatening like US supply lines across the Pacific. They're just going gung-ho straight for all these like tiny islands. They've captured loads of tiny islands, loads of kind of big countries across the Pacific theatre. And what they've done is they've massively overextended, but they've gone unchecked and they've invaded ferociously. But this is all about to change. So the US have begun utilizing signals intelligence, which is picking up code and stuff like that. And they've begun intercepting Japanese plans. After this, in around like 1942, the Battle of the Coral Sea begins. This is a major naval battle between Japan and the US, which sees some kind of trade blows evenly. Japanese probably come off slightly better from the battle because they sink the USS Lexington, which is a vital US aircraft carrier. But the important thing is they can't compete with the industrial might of the Americans. So they feel the burn of these like grand naval battles they have, thinking that while they have like superior ships and superior naval doctrine, which they might arguably do, they can't really afford to lose ships like the Americans can. After
that's part of the whole problem, right? From the Japanese perspective, is like this was a crazy play attacking Pearl Harbor anyway. So like they basically have to pin all their hopes on destroying as much of the fleet as possible, the American Navy, so that they can survive whatever's next, because they obviously cannot defeat America by invading America, because No country can do that. So basically,
It's quite
Japan's idea
interesting.
is to like destroy enough of their fleet that by the time they can rebuild the fleet to attack back, Japan is so dug in that it becomes impossible. That's their
Yeah.
only hope.
Japan might have done quite a lot better if they did catch the aircraft carriers at Pearl Harbor. So I don't think they really their main
They didn't touch
objective.
them, did they?
Yeah, so like we talked about in the episode, like naval carriers, like aircraft carriers, are the most important ship at this time by a country
Still are.
mile. Yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely still are. Yeah, if they did get those carriers at Pearl Harbor, I think they got 1 or 2 at Pearl Harbor, or damaged one and sunk
Did
another
they?
one. Yeah, but
Really? I thought they like damaged one, but it was ready to be the only aircraft carrier they built. They damaged, but it was so like nothing that they could just rebuild it and be ready to set sea.
I don't want to
recite
recite the episode, but like Pearl Harbor's a shallow shore, so basically a lot of unless they completely obliterate the ship, often they could just bring it back up and repair it and put it back into action a year later. So yeah, the Japanese and the Americans had this battle at the Coral Sea, and the Japanese received damage, the Americans received damage, but it's too much damage for the Japanese to keep going. They're finally checked in their Pacific expansionism. This is just before they're going to probably launch plans to invade Australia. I imagine if they did win that, the Battle of Australia would be next. And
well,
so,
again, I'm not. I'm not sure they could have invaded Australia.
No, it's enormous, isn't it?
Similarly to America, Australia is kind of too big to invade. What they could have done though is neutralize the north coast, which, like I say, they did bomb Darwin. I've lived in Australia in a city called Cairns, and I don't think they were ever able to touch there. You know, there were bases there. There were American and Australian bases that were on that north coast prepared, but they never got as far as neutralizing. They basically just wanted to neutralize as much of the Allied fleets and aircraft carriers, etc., as they could, because the only hope they have is to take as much territory as they can and then be so difficult to get off that the people don't bother to say, "Oh, fine, you can have it.
It's not
It's only
really the
some rocks."
territory; it's the resources, because Japan is
exactly.
like incredibly low on natural. Japan basically has like no natural resources, but like all these areas around Japan, it's like the Philippines and Malaysia, they're all like incredibly resource rich, like heavy in oil, heavy in rubber, like really important in steel, like things you really need for a war effort. Like Japan doesn't really have a massive steel industry at this time, so like it is incredibly hard for them to wage the war. That's why they're kind of having the war in China and striking south. Like their main aim is to keep it's kind of what the Nazis do, just less good. Like Germany are pushing into like Poland and France and all these countries, and they're taking their resources and their people and their factories and their industry and using it for their own war machines. That's what the Japanese are trying to do, but they're just not doing it well enough. And it's probably because like the Pacific is just so hard, it's so expansive, like nothing's close, it's all hundreds and thousands of miles away. It's all very philosophical, like we'll take this, we'll take there, we'll have this great Japanese empire, the sun will never set on the Japanese empire. But like really it's fraught from the get-go. So we had this battle of the Coral Sea, and then we get to the Battle of Midway, and so we had this like checking of Japanese expansionism at the Coral Sea. But then finally at the Battle of Midway, from this
it all
moment
changes.
on, the US intercept plans for the Japanese to basically attack Midway. And at that moment, the US established naval dominance.
Kind of funny that it's called the Battle of Midway. It's like the midway point. It's
midway point of the war.
Yeah,
sort of
midway of the front, innit? From that moment, the Japanese have been winning, and then midway happens, and from then on, the Americans
half time, battle of half time.
It's a game of 2 halves. And then midway, fucking second half began, and the Americans started stomping. It's true.
Sound like Sean Dyche. And from that moment on, after the Battle of Midway, after the Battle of half time, US naval dominance is established in the Pacific, and the Japanese lose 4 aircraft carriers, which is enormous. They're basically completely on the back foot from this point onwards. And the US begins setting their sights on retaking the land that Japanese have taken. So they embark on this island hopping campaign, which starts at Guadalcanal. So Guadalcanal is like it's basically Solomon Islands. Like it's basically just slightly north of Australia, or quite a few hundred miles north of Australia. I say that on a map, but like really,
it's a big area.
It's a massive area. Yeah. And in August 1942, the Americans land on Guadalcanal. And after 6 months of fighting, the US hold the island and begin driving the Japanese Navy and the Japanese Army back across the Pacific. The US Navy and the US Army then kind of split 2 ways. General Douglas MacArthur, who is a very, very famous general from World War II, he's got the famous picture of him standing next to Hirohito. He's always got a big pipe in his mouth. He looks like a bit of a fucker, hard fucker.
We talk about him a lot in the Korean War. He was put in charge because he'd done so well on the Pacific front. They put him in charge for the Korean War, and then he got like really, really extremist and was like, "Let's fucking nuke the fuckers!" Like, I'm so sick of these pricks. And Eisenhower, was it Eisenhower? It must have been Eisenhower who was like, the president at the time was like, Let's
Oh,
take it
no,
back a step. All right, Dougie. I think your time is passed. Let's bring in some
one too
fresh
many
blood.
smokes of that pipe there, boy.
It's substitution
you better
time.
pull it back.
Yeah,
it's
but at
battle
this
of
point, he's
half
actually
time.
doing quite well. But by this point, he's doing quite
so
well.
they're doing. Yeah, this is where he gets his name. He pushes westwards. He's the Americans have this island hopping campaign, which basically means they're skipping these heavily fortified islands to seize like less well defended islands that can give them a chance to advance and take stock and bring everyone up, and then recharge, resupply, and then go again to the next island. And it's really smart because like the Japanese were dug in these like really like big areas, and the US is going maybe not. Maybe we won't. Maybe we won't attack that like really fortified place. Maybe we attack this like smaller island off the coast, build a couple of airfields there, rather than trying to attack like Saigon or something. I don't know. That's not really in this area specific. Jakarta. maybe that's a bit more. Maybe it's a bit more relevant.
They definitely got control
Fiji.
of all of Indonesia. Did they have control of Fiji? I don't think they reached as far as
British
Fiji.
Malay, wouldn't it? Indonesia.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a look. 1941. I don't think they had Fiji. Fiji's too far south. They wouldn't have had it. So they had occupied Jakarta by that point. Wow. They really had occupied. I'll tell you what. I'll put on a map, so a picture, so anyone that's watching the YouTube can take a look. But yeah, basically,
it's as if I've. Did I research this topic? I think I did research this topic. To have you tippy-tapping away and questioning every fucking thing I say.
I wasn't questioning that. I just wanted to look at it. Sorry, you just said Fiji. No, hold the fucking phone. You just said Fiji. You just said Fiji, and I'm looking at the map right here, and Fiji is in blue because
about Fiji. Fiji was a joke.
Oh yeah, of course he was fucking joking about Fiji. You never joke about Fiji.
Fijians, no, you never joke about them.
You never joke about. I'll put a thing on so people that are looking at the visuals can take a look. But yeah, essentially they've pretty much got all of it. I mean, they've got what? They've got Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. They've got all of Indonesia, all of Malaysia. And then obviously the Philippines, and then a bunch of islands, and then Papua New Guinea as well. So they control like the entire Southeast Asia and
they do
all the islands. I didn't realize it was that much, and obviously they've taken parts of China as well and all of Korea. So that's actually nuts.
They took a lot of China, but I think what people gloss over in World War II is like in the Sino-Japanese War, which is the Chinese-Japanese War. The Japanese like really quickly took like loads of China, and then over the next like few years basically took nothing. And they had like a reorganized government, but like there was rebellions and kind of like sabotage and stuff like that. Like obviously the Chinese really did not like their Japanese occupiers, so that was just like really obviously quite challenging for them, and obviously the Chinese flooded like immense parts of the country.
If you hadn't, I'm sure you've already, people that are just listening have noticed, but we're doing another one virtually because it just works so well. And I will say it is actually quite nice just being able to type something up and look at a map of what he's talking about, so I can kind of visualize it a bit better in my mind. So I might just save these pictures I'm looking at and then just plaster them in when I'm editing this later.
Real time a joke.
I'm real time editing in my mind because I can see it better by looking at on the thing on my right.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
And we can also check when we're wrong because you might have
clocked.
You might have clocked, guys, but we're really often wrong.
I know. I've said this before, but the amount of times when I'm editing and I go, for fuck's sake, I've got to get rid of this entire segment because we've completely got that wrong.
I think that's also when we say something. I think we're shocked when we are right. We're like, oh no, we can't keep that in. Yeah, too right. Back to this island hopping campaign. The Americans capture the Mariana and Marshall Island chains, which are above the Solomon Islands, which are like sort of in the Western Pacific area, getting closer and closer towards Japan. And they're now putting the Japanese home islands, which are the four main islands of Japan, I think that's four, which is basically Japanese homeland. They put them within range of the new Boeing B-29 Super Fortress heavy bomber. And it's really important not to gloss over the B-29 bomber. But it is state-of-the-art. Some people say it's like beyond state-of-the-art for the time. Like it's like something you couldn't imagine. It can fly up to 4,000 miles, in some cases 5,000 miles. And the cost of the development for this one heavy bomber was $3 billion at the time, which is $1.1 billion more dollars than the Manhattan Project, which led to the development of the atomic bomb. So this is a costly bomber, but it is it is leaps and bounds.
You got that in current money?
Design. I don't know. Why don't we Google it? Because we have that option now.
What was it? $3.3 billion
in 1944. I think it is
$60 billion.
I thought it was more.
Yeah, you know what? I thought it would be more as well. $60 billion, which is
the cost of the development of the B-29 was $3 billion back in 1942. But in reality today, that's $60 billion.
Yeah,
which is about the size of the UK's defence budget, I think. So the US have spent it on one plane in 1942, and we're kind of pussyfooting around these days.
That's true.
I won't talk about what I think about defence spending, but I have just listened to a great podcast, which has made me all in favour of spending more on defence spending. And I won't say it because I want you here. I wouldn't say
You're worried if you say the podcast and they're going to click off the video.
They're going to go, this is actually a good podcast.
That sounds great. Why am I listening to these chums when I could just listen to the other pod?
No, if you want to know, just, DM us on Instagram. And with the capture of the Mariana and Marshall Islands, this B-29 bomber can now begin extensively bombing the Japanese home islands, and that's what it does. In November 1944, the B-29s begin extensive bombing runs over urban targets in Japan, which causes massive, widespread destruction to Japanese cities and massive civilian casualties. Japanese cities, you may know, are mainly made from like very flammable, incendiary
wood.
Fabrics and materials. Yeah, a lot of wood. So you get instances like the firebombing of Tokyo in March 1945, where roughly 100,000 Japanese civilians are killed and 1 million are made homeless. And this is all made possible.
Nuts, by the way.
Yeah, this is all made possible by which can fly 2,000 miles, drop like I don't know how many. I don't want to say a stupid number here, but hundreds of tons over the amount of the cohort of bombers they have, and just completely. I think in one run on this day they flattened the entire section of East Tokyo, which is a big city. Tokyo's an enormous city, and like the whole eastern portion of the city just flattened, rubble. And why does the B-29 bomber matter in the grand scheme of things in the Battle of Iwo Jima, Joe? I hear you asking. Why don't you ask it?
Why does the B-29 bomber matter so much in the grand scheme of things in Iwo Jima, Zach?
I've been waiting here for you to answer that. Thank you so much. Well, Iwo Jima is an early warning station. It sends reports of B-29 bombers.
Of course.
Coming, like I said earlier. You knew. You're just playing along with me. It sends reports back to the home islands when the B-29s are in flight. So Japanese anti-air, flak guns and fighters can start getting in position and get ready for them to come. But really, Japanese anti-air infrastructure is decimated. There's no real point in Iwo Jima. They can't really rally enough fighters or personnel on the ground to actually be any problem for these B-29s. And B-29s fly really high in the air, so Japanese fighters can't reach them anyway. So American intelligence, from this moment on, designate Iwo Jima as a priority for emergency landing bases for B-29 bombers returning from Japan, securing the 2 airfields that are flying off these fighter escorts that are attacking B-29 planes, and providing a base for future invasions.
That does kind of sound like an important reason for them to take Iwo Jima. So your argument that it isn't important...
We'll get to this in the end.
There must be more to it, right?
We'll get to this in the end, yeah. Many historians suggest that the cost does not outweigh the results. So,
right.
To what extent it doesn't actually do what it does on the tin. So let's get to the Battle of Iwo Jima. We've pussyfooted around and I've beat around the bush, but let's get to it. So,
yay! Battle time!
We'll start with the American side. But Operation Detachment is the name given to it. And it's supposed to be a massive naval and air bombardment of the island to soften it and weaken defensives, followed by an amphibious landing from the Marine Corps. All right, come on, Marines. Come on, Marines, get your ass over there. The Americans have learned loads from their previous battles at Tarawa, Saipan, and Guadalcanal. So they're kind of perfecting and refining their ability to launch these amphibious landings, which are really, really difficult. Amphibious landings, I can't stress, they are probably the most challenging part of warfare you can imagine, because there is very little support on the ground. You're at the mercy of the defenders. You will take heavy casualties off the beach. So yeah, it's quite a daunting task. And to kind of supplement this daunting task, Major General Harry Schmidt, the commander of the Marine Landing Force, requests a 10-day heavy bombardment of the island. This is one of the major sticking points that will come across this episode. He is quickly pushed away and pushed back, and rather than 10 days, Rear Admiral William Blandy and Admiral Turner eventually limit that to 4 days from bombardment. So you ask for 10, you do a little 10, 4, 9, 5, 8, 6. They're 4 days. That's all you're getting. In reality, there is really, really bad weather over the island, so this is only about 2 or 3 days of really, really ineffective shelling, and most of the Japanese defenses are like dug so well that this bombardment of the shore and from the air does literally nothing to like displace the defenders.
I have a geography question. How far from Japan is Iwo Jima? I can
700
have
miles.
A look, obviously. But so I guess my question.
Now to look at everything.
I can have a look.
I don't know who's asking this question. I could probably type
No.
and not waste your time, Zach.
I am asking for the listeners, because I guess the point I'm trying to make is, from the Japanese perspective, is this a particularly easy place for them to be able to get reinforcements to? If the battle goes on for weeks, would they be able to come and help
off. This is a death sentence.
Okay. Yeah,
being a defender on this island, being a defender on any of these islands, like you have this like idea of valor and courage. Like you are not leaving this island; you will die there.
Right,
and that kind of goes for all Japanese soldiers.
That's like that story, which I don't know if I imagine you're not going to say, but it's the story of that guy that Japanese soldier. Because of this kind of Bushido, I will fight to the death, I will fight for my country, I will fight to the, this kind of warrior spirit of the Japanese. The really famous story about the Japanese soldier that stayed patrolling or as a sentry for this island and didn't. Well, I don't know the story exactly. I think it was like 1970s where he refused any calls.
Yeah.
I'm sure many people know the story.
He was still theoretically at war. Yeah, and this happens.
Yeah, because he doesn't know if they've like. Because the point of the Japanese is that they will never surrender. So they get this idea that the Japanese have surrendered. They think that must be propaganda. We surely haven't surrendered. If we have surrendered, then that means that our government must be somewhere else planning the next attack. I cannot lose my post, and
or it's a shame thing, and they'll commit seppuku.
Right, and you're right, and that's the other thing. And so this Japanese soldier on this island refused the call to stop until they sent like a Japanese general to that island to say it's okay.
Stand down, soldier. You've done a great job.
You stand down. You've really done above and beyond.
He like runs into his arms like I've been here for so long. I was living off fish. I was spearfishing fish.
Did I do all right?
Loincloth, for fuck's sakes.
Does Daddy Hirohito know? Did I do all right, Papa?
Hirohito's dead, son.
Hirohito's been dead for 20 years. No! It's actually quite sad. I feel for that guy.
Yeah, I mean, hilarious. Like, horrible, but hilarious.
That's a true story, though. That's fucking
you don't
crazy.
Really get that courage in, like, the Western world, do you? You don't get, like,
it's just such devotion. It's this, like, devout, like, belief system that the Japanese have in their warriors.
Courage is the wrong word.
They're pious. I mean, they genuinely believe that this is a godly thing that they're doing, and if they will be, this is really big for them.
Yeah,
and that's why they never surrender, which is why the Pacific Front in general is just so grim for everyone, because it's just non-stop brutality. Anyway,
thank you for the diversion. That was a welcome one. Unlike your other ones,
unlike the other ones, yeah. I felt that one.
So back to the shelling. So they've asked for 10 days of shelling. It's only 4 days. And the main reason for this is because there's still like a submarine and kamikaze threat to US ships. So the admirals, to be fair to them, like don't want to leave like their ships unguarded really off the coast of Japan, off the coast of a Japanese island, to potentially be at risk of like being sunk and their sailors dying. So they have to think about it. But like really, there's not much of a threat. The threat is so insignificant in relation to 500 American ships with hundreds of thousands of sailors and soldiers there that can defend at any second. Also, the Japanese had basically no fuel. But I guess this is an intelligence disparity, right? The Americans may not know exactly all these circumstances that we know, so we have the benefit and the hindsight of understanding exactly what the conditions the Japanese were facing when we come to criticize the actions of these admirals. And also the admirals are looking ahead at the Battle of Okinawa. And Iwo Jima is supposed to be a starting point, really, for the Battle of Okinawa.
Okinawa is a Japanese island. It's not a territory that they've taken from another country. It's part of Japan. It's just an island south of Japan. So
yeah, it's not
unlike
a home
the
island.
Other islands.
It's not a home island, but it's very close.
Yeah, but it's still part of the country. It'd be like attacking Guernsey first, or attacking.
Well, Iwo Jima isn't Japanese island. It's Japanese territory. It's not one. It's not one.
Oh, is it? I thought Iwo Jima was a place they'd taken as well.
No, it is. Yeah.
Fair enough. But I guess my point is still, because it's still what I'm saying is still kind of the same. The closer you get to the main island, the more viciously they fight. And Okinawa is quite a big island, so it's like if you sure Iwo Jima is important, but Okinawa is the big one because not only is it close enough that they can bomb quite easily if they take it, but it's a real, like, known part of Japan. Japanese people will
Yeah.
know people that live in Okinawa. There'll be tons of civilians there, unlike maybe some of the other islands that Japan owns. So this is they fight even harder and even more to the death.
Equivalent of like Okinawa to Japan is probably like Hawaii to the US. Like Hawaiians are
Yeah,
American.
in comparison to Guam, say, for example. Guam is an island that America owns.
No,
I know, no, I'm saying Guam is American owned, as
Guam's
is Iwo Jima.
Jima. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
Guam
Yeah,
is
Guam's
Iwo
Iwo
Jima.
Jima.
So-
Hawaii's
so-
Okinawa, yeah.
Exactly. So to the Americans, some citizens will know of Guam, but in general, it is not a part of America that they know much about. So if Guam was taken, whatever. But if the Japanese then invaded Hawaii, like you say, that's a state. It's a place where there are a ton of civilians. You will know someone that's from Hawaii, and so it will feel much more of the country, and it will
also
feel that much more intense.
Equally, Hawaii and Okinawa are both like lovely islands.
Oh, are they? Have you been to either?
very much. No, but I've heard
Yeah,
great things about
fucking-
Okinawa, specifically Okinawan women.
What the fuck?
Chill out. Gary, I'm so sorry, Gary, because she listens to our podcast. So I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't tell. Whoever's listening, don't tell.
Back to the battle preparations. So the US has stationed about 500 ships off Iwo Jima, and they have 60,000 Marines. I think they have about 100,000 total, but 60,000 Marines ready to invade on the 19th of February. The Japanese side, however, something dramatic has happened, and in steps in 1944 a new defender of the island, new chief defender, General Kuribayashi. And he is a forward-thinking, progressive general, really, really well portrayed in the film Letters to Iwo Jima by Clint Eastwood. Clint is really, really good film. If you haven't seen it, definitely recommend it.
I really want to.
And he's the main reason the Japanese did so well in the battle. But, you can judge what doing a good job means. A good job just means still for the Japanese army that you'll all die. But that's a bit depressing, wasn't it?
Jesus.
Yikes, dude. So Kuribayashi, he studied in the States as a military attaché. He lived in Buffalo, New York, and he enrolled at Harvard University and took courses in history and politics. He traveled extensively over the US and saw the close connections of industry and military, meaning that he knew exactly what would happen if you went to war with the US and how the industry and military would kind of work together to overpower any threat. And repeatedly apparently told his family in the lead up to Pearl Harbor that America is the last country in the world Japan should fight.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful. Man, dude, fuck that shit. I don't want to fight the Americans. That'd be
Oh
horrible.
my god, I mean, Christ, what were they thinking? It's the same with the Admiral Yamamoto, is that his name? The one that was actually in charge of the attack on Pearl Harbor and for a lot of the fighting in the Pacific Front. He was also like, and I swear he also trained or went to university or did some sort of training in Europe or America. So it's just funny how both of them have both seen what America's like and both know this is a huge mistake. But when the high command say, fuck it, we're doing it anyway.
Like Japan at this point is like an incredibly hawkish government. Like Tojo, I think, who is the prime minister, they're like incredibly imperialistic, very nationalistic, very right wing. All they're thinking about is like Japanese superiority. And I think they're being looked down by other countries. And this is their moment to show how good they are and how strong they are and how good fighters they are. And I think they genuinely think at the top brass that they will win this war. Yeah. But then the people who have logic and have been to the States and seen it and been like, this is another fucking level. Like, there is no chance we win this. They're typically the generals and the admirals who perform the best because they're grounded in a sense of realism. Like Admiral Yamamoto was probably a great admiral during World War II. Like he orchestrated Pearl Harbor, really, really kind of well used his fleets during the battles like Coral Sea, and unfortunately got fairly unlucky because of the interception at Midway. But like these are good military commanders, and it's kind of coincidental they've all spent time in America. And Kuribayashi, who is the chief of defense here, knows that. He knows the well. It's also important to kind of preface that Kuribayashi sounds like a good man, but at the same time he is an IJA, Imperial Japanese Army officer, and they have been doing some fucked up shit across China. And he's the chief of staff to the commander of the 23rd Army. Before I'll explain why that's important, but he's chief of staff to the commander of the 23rd Army, and they commit war crimes during the occupation of China and the invasion of Hong Kong. Kuribayashi is not actively involved in them. He's a chief of staff. He's not on the ground. And apparently he's quite like a sensitive and compassionate officer. He'd go see his men in hospital, which is practically unheard of for officers in the Japanese army.
Oh, really? But interesting.
Just nice to... Yeah, I don't think he gives much due diligence to like customs and stuff like that. I guess it's part of living in the US and seeing like this lack of customary behavior that happens there. But because of this involvement he has with 23rd Army and his actions there, I think there's this sort of dispute he has with his commander. and he receives orders to begin the strategic defense of Iwo Jima after being sort of sidelined a little bit. This is basically the Japanese equivalent of giving a general a death sentence because they've done something wrong. They've shamed themselves. So he's basically been deliberately selected for a suicide mission, which is defending Iwo Jima. I think it's because he publicly expressed beliefs that going to war with the United States was a really bad thing to do. What Kuribayashi does, he does an unbelievably good job of constructing defences in Iwo Jima. He is a soldier of utmost capabilities. His men construct really deep honeycombs, around 18 kilometres of underground tunnels, hidden artillery positions, dense networks of bunkers and pillboxes across the island. They basically make this a fortress island. And an island where the Americans will have to fight tooth and nail, grit and blood and sweat and tears for every metre across this island. And that is exactly what happens. And I'm afraid, Joe, that is where we're going to end part 1 of the Battle of Iwo Jima. And I know I've kind of teased you a little bit, and I've talked about how the Japanese and the Americans have got set up and the fighting's all ready to happen. We've not actually talked about the fighting, but rest assured we will get into it in the second part next week. And I apologise for leaving everyone on a cliffhanger, but I do love to do it to you all, because I know you'll be back next week, hungry, gobbling for more.
That's right. So we'll see you for next week for part 2 of Iwo Jima. See you then.
Bye.